Hi, everyone. I'm so excited today to introduce you to a phenomenal guest, a woman I've known for a couple of years, and I want to know her better. Her name is Nina Boski, a transformational energy, life, and business coach, as well as a media executive who's the founder of LifeBites Global, which gets people thinking and inspired about their lives. She's also producing two projects around Marilyn Monroe and another reality TV show called Randyland, and a huge classic Hollywood fan she is. She's very eclectic, and I love her. She interviewed me once for Broadway World when I won the Côte d'Azur Award, which was really thrilling. And she's a great interviewer, and she's got inspiring ideas, and she worked with some of the greats in Hollywood and has been a long time content creator and a producer. So I'll let her talk more about herself. And Nina, let me know what I missed and what you'd like to talk about.
Yeah, you got it more than enough. I think and I know your work and how you kind of walk in the world. This is just a makeup what we have in terms of our physicality. We are really spiritual beings having a human experience, not the other way around. So, everything I do really gets people thinking and inspired, and even entertainment projects at this point have to have some kind of a message to it. For me, I got to get lit up about it, not just for the sake of doing it, so.
Me too. You worked on one of Oprah's biggest projects at the beginning, one of her most inspiring. Was it called Belief?
Oh, it was the Belief series. So she had a lot of different promoters, and I was one of them, a lot of transformational people in the space. And I thought it was really brilliant because now a lot of people do it. But back when was actually starting to distribute Belief, the Belief series, just for people that don't know what it is, it was a documentary, a 7-day documentary about the different beliefs in the world and how we all have our different cultures and our different beliefs. But it was really about bridging and understanding. And I think it's actually more powerful now, given what's going on in the world. I mean, we're just on attack mode. And so
Yeah.
to have that compassion and understanding. So she went to people, not she personally, but her group of people went to people like myself to help get the message out there. And so my portion of it was I got all these transformational leaders to talk about their own beliefs, and then man on the streets too. What do you believe, etc. So that was
Oh,
my portion. So yeah.
yeah, you're right. That would be really important now. I kind of created a show once called Apocalypse Cafe about a roundtable of discussing what does God mean, or do you believe in God, and what are all our beliefs. That's a great idea for now.
It really is, and I think more so than ever, because
Mhm.
so many of us, we're almost one, I think we're tired. We're tired, and we don't seem to be. I think even if you're excited about something, it's kind of like, oh my gosh, I've got to get out there. And as a coach, probably about 2017, I started to see a shift. It used to be, give us the Tony Robbins rah-rah motivational message.
Yeah.
And particularly during the pandemic, Lydia, it's really about, how do I create that balance in my life? How do I find that within myself when I've got two kids, I've got a full-time job, and by the time it's 8 o'clock at night, I'm trying to still get their homework done. And then their children go to sleep, and at 10 o'clock at night, they're answering emails. This is not sustainable. So
As a
it's
coach, so you have you started in 2017 seeing a shift away from the Tony Robbins rah, it's productivity at all costs, right?
success, win.
So what is the answer then? What is the in a nutshell, what do you
Yeah.
advise people to do immediately to?
I'm actually, the more and more I call myself an energy coach, even versus a life or a business coach. And what I mean by that is I'm a really a type A personality. So I'm a go person. But what was happening is the go was creating a burnout. And so about probably 8 or 9 years ago, I started to go, wait a minute here. This isn't sustainable. So in order to speed up, we got to learn how to slow down. And I have something, I call it the Doobie principle. But think about a high peak performance athlete. Just think about all the big ones, Kobe Bryant back in the day. He was one of the perfectionists
Like
that
his
would go out 4 hours before the game, or even 4 hours longer than anybody else was practicing. But
yeah.
this is what he would do. He's get up at 4. He would then maybe start at 6, play for 2 hours, recharge for 2 hours, play for 2 hours, recharge for 2 hours. In corporate America, you were actually getting accolades by, I did 17 appointments by 11 o'clock in the morning. And guess what? And then 11 o'clock goes to 2 o'clock, 2 o'clock goes to 5 o'clock, 5 o'clock goes to 8 o'clock, 11 o'clock, and then you do the same thing over again. I'm just telling you, it's not sustainable. So what is the answer? We have to learn boundaries in our own energy and learn how to manage our energy. And that means boundaries of how much we're going to let the outside world affect us. And I'm going to give you a quote that happened from the ex-CEO of Google. It was the mid 2000s. This is just, it was astronomical when I heard it. But he was telling in the mid 2000s, so this is before all video and social media really took off. He said that in a 48-hour period, we process as much information from the dawn of time to 2001. That was the mid 2000s. Okay. In 2017, the University of San Diego did a survey, and they came up with that in a 24-hour period, we are processing about 35 gigabytes of information. And I said, well, what does that mean? I don't know what that means. Okay. What that means basically in a nutshell, in a week, we are like a laptop and we would crash. So the reason why the anxiety, the mental health, the addictions, of what's been happening in our world is because we can't keep having our brains on go, go, go without the recharge. And we don't seem to be listening. And it's a hard one. And I'm guilty of it too. So it's not like, oh my gosh, I've got all the answers. I just know that if I don't start out with a clear intention of what I want to do that day and get out of it,
Yes.
Energy follows thought. And guess what? If I just get up and start going, I'm at the effect of the outside world.
Wow. It's so important to hear this, because energy is the one thing I've been chasing for so long. I always think I need more energy. And I won't take drugs, but I do love coffee. I have to admit. As far as what you're talking about of energy, is that we deplete our energy by focusing on nonsense and scattering it, right?
Yes.
And we don't, if we set our intentions early in the day and carve out and then shut off the internet, right? Because
Yes.
I have a terrible Twitter addiction. I can't stop. I've got to stop.
Well, and it's hard. I'm not saying it is easy, but I want to give you a kind of an example. So in my early 20s, I got into sales. So back in the day, there wasn't internet, there wasn't cell phones. Mm-hmm. So when I had to actually go sell, faxes were just coming out, but you had to have the actual signed copy. So mm-hmm. I either had to send it snail mail or go out to the client and get the deal signed. Okay. So just think about though.
Dark ages. Yeah.
Yeah. But think about that. My energy naturally got to recharge and realign because I wasn't in the car on my cell phone.
That's right.
I wasn't checking my emails, and I certainly wasn't on social media yet. So our brains are being wired. Yeah.
We're being rewired. That's it. There's a documentary about social media. Have you seen that yet? I did. And there's a guy named Jim Quick too. He's a pretty good, he talks about the brain science. And one of the things that I think is really important, this is for everybody that may be listening. When you get up in the morning, do not go to your cell phone first, and especially social media or the news or checking your email, because it's that time between sleep and awake that our brains are the most vulnerable. So what we're putting into them starts to rewire. So if I now look at something and, oh my gosh, there was another missile that got shot in the Ukraine, and I have a feeling about that, whatever it is, or I got a horrible email from a client, let's just say, oh my gosh, what do? I go into fight or flight in my brain. Oh, that's interesting. Oh my God. Yes. I got to write this down. You a book, I hope. You're going to write a book.
I am in the process of writing. That's interesting. You said that. I'm in the process of writing a book right now.
Oh my God, this is so important to everyone to not go straight to the internet or the bad news or even your own emotional bad news, right?
I'm a real, with all my clients, with everybody, I talk about this, is have a morning ritual that isn't about getting up, having your cup of coffee, taking a shower, getting the kids out the door, all that stuff. All of that is the mechanics of life. We all have to do that.
Yes, the mechanics.
But how do I want to feel today really sets the tone. So if I just get up and go, let's say it's a Monday morning and I just start, well, guess what? I'm now at the effect of the outside world. But if I set my intention, it doesn't mean that things aren't going to come at me. But what it does mean is that if I'm really clear that today I want to lead with love, when somebody comes at me that's not loving, I can redirect because I have a GPS that's telling me, no, I'm going to lead with love today. I'm going to be powerful, clear, and focused. But what we do so much of the time is that we get into the mechanics. And I really think this is a really big one. I see so many people on autopilot.
Yeah.
We've become robots instead of, really, if I asked a client from a company that hired me, so she didn't come to me personally. And I said, what makes you happy? And she said, I don't know. I've never asked myself that question.
Oh my God.
And that's not unusual, by the way.
Yeah.
For you, that is a seeker who's been on a journey, there's a lot of people that are, and I think that's wonderful. But for those people that aren't, we've got to learn how to manage our energy in a different way, because the world, unfortunately, is going to get faster.
Oh, why?
So how do we manage everything that's coming at us all day long? And that is a tough one for everybody. And it's not like I've mastered it, but I've gotten really clear about, when I get into that frenetic state where I'm like, I've then got to take a step back and I've got to slow the roll, so to speak.
Absolutely.
And the other thing, and I'm going to say this to you as well, but partly for some of your audience out there, people that are empaths really have to watch it.
Oh my God, yes.
Because energetically, we pick up on everything. And so for those people that really can just live in the mechanics of life and just do it, it's a little bit easier. But for people that are energetically sensitive, man, it really is important to have.
I find myself crying over a child. I heard about the orphan in Ukraine that was adopted. Both parents died. I'm like, oh, and I don't want my boyfriend to see me that emotional that early in the morning. We just had a really fun, wonderful talk in the morning.
But that's so true. That sensitivity. And so you also have to learn how to protect your energy. So if for everybody, it's a little bit different. So I teach people tools how to do that. And it's the weirdest thing, because I say to myself, okay, I'm just talking energy. I'm not talking like I'm putting a barrier up. So why does this work? But every time, and if anybody, listening to this, I'll give them the protection. It's like a 5 or 6 minute protection, kind of a mini meditation or grounding that gives you that ability to just kind of protect your energy field. Because when you do go out there and you're an empath, you just absorb everything, and it's so easy to, and we don't have enough downtime.
One of my favorite quotes lately is where the world is a loose garment. And I thought that Christ said it, but it's St. Francis, because I'm always looking for how to not be so affected by things. All of us, there's too much mental, my podcast is on mental health as well. And you deal with that every day, but the reason people are so sad and depressed, I don't know if it is social media. Is it because we have too much information? We never knew what was going on in every bad piece of news in the world all at once.
And we're all connected now. So,
it's good. It's also
it's a good thing. And yet before it felt so far away, everybody was so far away, but we're in a second around the world, it can go, information. So that's why I'm saying the world is going faster and faster and faster in the sense of that we're all connected. So we've got to be able to manage our energy in a way that allows us to do, but then learn how to be.
Oh, I like that. Doobie.
The Doobie, and I'm not talking about the pot Doobie. But when I'm talking to people and speaking, a lot of times I'll go, I'll start out with really, really loud music. And so we all know how to be this high octane, level, but do we know how to come back down and just be still? And I don't know about you, but if I'm still too long, I start to go woof, woof, woof. But the more that I do it, the better I am.
Totally.
That's the thing.
Good listener. I practice being a good listener. In college, someone said to me, "You never look anyone in the eye." I was always looking over their shoulder to see the cuter guy behind me at a beer keg party once. And the minute he said that, ever since then, because my ego was involved, I stopped and I started looking people in the eye and listening. And I trained myself. And then I became so curious about other people. I don't want to even hear myself anymore at all. I'm serious, but it's a process, an evolution of learning to let go of the ego and the self, the worry. And for me, I've got a different journey than what a lot of other people have gone through, but seeking those moments of clarity and calm are so important, like you said.
And I think we're afraid, that we're not, especially here in the United States, not so much in the world. There's this we have this work ethic that we live to work.
I know.
And other parts of the world don't live that way.
Take siestas, they take long lunches in Spain, and they relax with their family and take a nap. Yeah. We're fast food. We're fast food junkies.
I had a client last year, or it was probably 2021. Last year. And it was I know that between 2020 and 2021, I'm like, what year are we in? Right. But it was during the height of the pandemic. So he says to me, gets on a Zoom, and it's probably about 11:30. And he says to me, "Nina," he goes, and he's in sales. And he goes, "I started at 8:30. I've had 17 calls today." And he wanted me to celebrate that. And see, for me, even with salespeople, I always say this: it's the energy in which you show up. It's not what you create; it's the energy in which you create it. So I'm gonna tell you what I mean by that.
Yeah.
How many people do you know? You've been in entertainment. You've been around a lot of famous and wealthy people. Wealth doesn't mean, and success doesn't mean happiness
At all.
Right?
Rarely, by the way.
Yeah. And so here's the thing. I could be driving down in LA here, 405, right? I can be screaming and shouting because I'm late for an appointment and be really tense and upset. Or I can turn on that classic rock and listen to a little music and have some fun along the way.
Exactly.
I could be.
Fun is the whole point.
Yeah. Or I could be having a massage and tense. And the massage feels great, but I'm thinking, oh my God, I got to do this in 5 hours from now. Oh my gosh, what am I going to do? Or I can really learn how to relax. And so the biggest thing is that we've got to learn how to be present, which I think is one of the hardest things in today's society, because we're either in the future or we're in the past. We're not here,
One of the lines I always say is, if you have 1 foot in tomorrow and 1 foot in yesterday, you're pissing on today.
That's so true. And it is, and we're living in stressful times. So it's not like it's simple what we're saying, but not always so easy to execute, especially all the time. And so it's not about being perfect. It's about practicing. How can I just stay present? So if I'm talking to you, Lydia, right now, that's where I'm at.
Exactly. Being present. Okay. That's the most important thing, what you just said, being present, being 100% present with whoever you're with.
Yeah.
So, and when you're looking at a baby's face, I feel present completely. Or when I'm
my gosh, yes.
When I'm eating popcorn, I'm present with that. But so what are the tricks? I mean, besides really getting deep breathing and just stepping back,
I think one of the best things you can do is that you want to start your day in the right tone.
Right.
So what I suggest, Jim Quick says an hour. I say most of my clients go, Nina, I can't do it for an hour. So I say, give it 30 minutes, get your feet planted on the ground when you get up. Like you're already in your kind of coffee. You're already in the mechanics of your day.
Yes.
And then you're not picking up to go look at your emails yet. You're setting your energetic intention for the day. So how do I want to show up today? That lead with love. Do I want to be powerful, clear, and focused? Do I want to be in laughter and connection? And use that as your GPS guide for your emotions for when things come in that are going to be the exact opposite. And I'm going to guarantee that you will have those things. They'll be exact opposite. But sometimes I'll just put my words right by my computer. Something might happen and I go, no, I'm going to lead with love today, right? Or if I'm talking to people, I might say, oh, I'm going to be inspirational and fun, let's just say.
Yeah.
But those are the kind of things that you want to be able to lead with. The other thing that I share with people, and this is kind of a little strange for people, but I think it's really important. We are energy beings. Energy follows thought. That's science. That's not woo-woo. That's science.
Yes.
So I tell people, a lot of runners or people that exercise can naturally kind of realign their energy. But let's say you came home after a really long day and you go and you take a shower. You take your shower and you're washing your physical body. Well, how about your energetic body? Wow, I'm just letting go of the day. I'm letting go of this experience with this trigger that happened with me earlier. But here's the key. When you let go of something energetically, you want to bring in what you want.
Oh, yes. Substitution, right?
So you're redirecting your energy. One of the techniques I give to people, and you know this stuff yourself, but for anybody that's kind of like opening their minds to this, think about the neutrality of kind of that, that Zen philosophy. Be that empty rice bowl. Be in neutrality. Well, how do you do that when we get triggered all day long? So instead of, what is it? Eckhart Tolle said this, and I think it was so powerful. He said, the biggest attribute to suffering is resistance.
Yes.
So what do? We have something negative or a shadow side come up in ourselves. And we're like hot potatoes. Oh, no, don't want to feel that. Or I do a spiritual bypass and I go, oh, no, well, you know what? They really didn't mean it, etc. Well, I say, excuse my French, screw that. Own it. It's okay. It's a feeling. It's like the weather. It'll come and go. But if I bypass that feeling and I don't fully own it, it goes inside my body.
Well, that's interesting. Oh, there's another technique I learned in sobriety. That to write your resentments out on paper, not typing them, because it comes out of your heart, down the arm, out the pen, on the paper, and it's gone.
Yeah. See, that's another way of doing it. It's like releasing the energy. So what I do, I have this technique and it's really kind of fun. I say, envision you're having a party. Okay. And in this case, you're going to invite all of your emotions to your party.
I love that.
Positive and negative. And you're the grand host or hostess of them all. So usually what we do is we go, no, I want all the positive emotions. I don't want everyone. Why do I invite my negative emotion? I don't want those. You know why? If you don't invite them to the party, what are they going to do? They're going to go knock, knock, knock. And then they're going to go knock, knock, knock. And then they don't get in. So they're going to go try through the side door, the back door, and the window, etc.
Or they'll gossip about you behind your back.
Yeah. So here's the thing. Come on in the door, be the gracious host that you are, and you're going to say, hello. And then you're going to go mingle with the opposite side of that emotion. You're going to give energy to the emotion you want.
Oh, I love that.
I had a mentor say to me, if you don't learn how to manage your emotions, and you've probably everybody's heard this, your emotions will drive you.
Right. So you can't bury them and you can't repress them and you can't avoid them. You got to face it and then realize it's a tissue of, it's not going to kill you. Pema Chodron, is that the one?
Yeah. Yeah.
Go deep into the pain of something and realize it's not going to kill you. Actually go into it, breathe it through, live it, see it in your mind's eye and then see, it's gone. I got through it. Right.
Yeah, there's Joan Rosenberg wrote a book. She's a psychologist, and she talks about that emotions, for them to play themselves out, are about 90 seconds, like the one emotion. Okay, so it
Ah,
takes about 90 seconds. And she talks about how depression, what happens is that if we don't replace that, let's say with a more positive kind of feeling, 90 seconds turns into 180, turns into the next, and it starts to group together. And then your chemistry moves into depressed state. So the key here is when somebody is not feeling well, and I'm not talking about people that have deep depression in a
yeah,
chemistry situation. I'm talking about if you start to feel yourself kind of go down that slant.
right.
That's why that redirecting it to something more positive, even if it's right now, I'm just going to be with myself and just allow myself to be. And my best self today might be getting out of bed. My
Can you
best.
go eat chocolate, or can you distract yourself by a funny movie? In other words, is it
Yeah.
okay
Yeah.
to replace that negative thought with something joyous and
Yeah.
leave it behind you? You know what I mean? Without having to go into it too much.
But just think about when those heavy emotions come up. This year, I lost several really dear, dear people to me. So that emotion of grief wasn't just going to be in one feeling. But
Yeah.
here's the thing, though, if I don't cut off the feeling and I really feel my emotions, I actually will come through it. But if it's when I go, oh my God, I got to be better, or you hear people saying, what are you doing with your life? Are you getting on with your life? Right. And the person's probably, a month into it going, gosh, I'm just trying to get my, get out of bed today. Right. It's a very different experience. So I think, we're moving, I have to say, in corporate America, at least, we're moving to more of what they call the EQ skills. So you have IQ, which is the mechanics, and you have EQ, which is the more of the emotional.
Emotion.
Empathy. Fast Company just did an article on empathy and how much we need this. I have a LifeBite card. I don't, oh, actually, I do have a
Oh, we
LifeBite
really
card
need
here.
more of that.
So these are my LifeBite cards. I have to send you some.
Oh,
So,
cool.
and, and one of the cards say, I would have to look for it right now, but one of the cards says, is that we already know that technology can surpass humanity. But the real challenge is, how can we have humanity catch up with technology? Because we've lost, in my opinion, right now, we have lost our way in such a huge way that we've got to bring it in back into balance. We really do, in order to survive as a world, not just the United States, but a whole world. We've got to bring back that feeling, because
Exactly.
without it,
A revolution of love, like the peace revolution.
yeah, yeah. So
It's so simple and basic, but
yes.
we're also competitive. The hyper-capitalism model of America. I'm not nothing against capitalism. I love it, but I'm saying it's gotten so ramped up to where competition is the goal. When you see the baking channel or the Food Network have grown men doing baking and stirring contests to see who could bake a cake better, it's like, come on, collaboration is the model it should be. Don't you think?
Yeah, and I think that it's moving in that direction. I really do. I think that they're, slowly it's moving to that
I
direction.
think so.
But I do think that we have to be more intentional about it. And I also think that in the media particularly, and I'm talking about mass media, you think about it, we've been on a journey. And we know better. Like when I deal with conflict facilitation with two people, whether, and you can be, let's say, if you've been in therapy or coaching situation or training situation, and you're in a triggering situation.
Mm.
The minute I start saying, you, Lydia, you this and you that and you that, all it is a cycle. It just keeps, there's no getting anywhere. There's no dynamic questions that people are asking. There's no sense of reasoning. So let's say if I say to you, oh, I don't really agree with what you said, but let me try to understand it. And let me tell you my point of view.
Oh my God, we need that so badly. And I find myself unable to. I talk that way and I go, what am I doing? I'm attacking this person for their conspiracy theory craziness.
Yes.
Whereas if I really got into their heart and soul, I'd see where their fear is.
Yes.
They'll lose what they have or not get what they want, or they think they're being the victim. And I need to have compassion for them first.
Well,
hard.
and also I think the thing is that we've lost our way in terms right now. I'm hoping that this is a phase and not a a kind of a permanent situation for us. But I do think that being able to have that dialogue and being able to have questions in the media that isn't about just you're wrong and I'm right. Because you
Exactly.
know what? Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it's just a belief system that I've told myself, just like the other person told themselves that they have a belief system. Some, that what is it, that quote that says, there your version, my version, and somewhere in the middle is the truth. We've lost our middle ground. So,
I always say when you're trying to decipher the truth, go to the highest law, the highest thought. And it's usually the thought that's of love, of love. It's the most spiritual thought is the one where it has less ego, less attachment to being right,
yeah.
and the softer, gentler way. And then I can sort of decipher what's right and wrong. Almost always it comes from love.
So I'll share something with you because it's on the same kind of subject line. So I'm very much in this, and I just finished our season. We did an investigation of Marilyn Monroe's death. Unfortunately, the 60th anniversary of her death has really garnered the least amount of truth in her life. And it's really sad because there's a documentary out there on, I'll just say, a mainstream network, and there's a feature film that came out on a mainstream network.
The Netflix thing.
Yeah. And unfortunately, you're thinking about, this is a human being. This isn't a character. Okay. And so we found, and we really did our best to do this, and we've gotten a lot of accolades, and I hope this is going to be a trend, not just with the Marilyn Monroe story, but in the world. So I say there is a rumor, there's a probable theory, and there's a fact. So let's break it down for people so they actually know. In the story of Marilyn Monroe, what is a fact, what is a probable theory, and what is an outlandish rumor? So if we take that same principle and we put it into the media today, what we have is a lot of commentary without a lot of fact. And so depending on what you watch, what you read, it's like parallel universes.
Wow.
And the problem with that is that everything's being blended together and we're calling it fact, and it's not. So Marilyn Monroe's story is a microcosm of the macrocosm that's happening in 2022, not back just in 1962.
Okay. Let's backtrack for 1 sec. What got you interested in Marilyn Monroe? You're an expert on this subject.
I am, and it wasn't something how should I say this? I was presented with a project, and I said, I love Some Like It Hot. It was my favorite comedy. I wasn't a big fan of Marilyn Monroe, but I didn't dislike her either.
Yeah.
But what happened is I had a feature film that was kind of fell in my lap, and it went to escrow very quickly. And you know about that. It usually never happens like that. We had 2 offers, boom, boom, boom. We're going to Cannes. Oh, this is great. And then we weren't. And so I said, let's start a podcast around Marilyn Monroe. And, I've always, listened and watched these investigations, but what really did happen to her? And because I wasn't attached to whatever my belief system was, I was really actually wanting to know the truth. I started to go, well, I always thought that was the truth. If somebody would have told me going into this that Marilyn Monroe was not murdered, I would say, of course she was murdered. In my belief system, she was murdered by the mob. Okay.
Yeah.
So you weren't going to change me otherwise. I've had people over the years, they come up, she was like 76. She comes up to me. She's like, you're not going to try to convince me otherwise that the Kennedys didn't kill her. and so over the years, what happened is that it shifted until we did one investigation with her when we first got going, and then we took it to a documentary, and then the podcast. We did a dramatic podcast on her, which is really wonderful. It's an actress named Erin Gavin who, oh my God, she just really captures her essence. But it's a dramatic, and it humanizes her. So when she's become almost a fictional character to people.
Yeah, a cartoon, a caricature.
Yeah, and weren't you called Little Miss Marilyn Monroe when you were younger? Didn't they? Like that
in that vein of
yeah, in that vein,
sustainable.
when I think I wasn't it when yeah, it was. So I the thing with this story and where it's been fascinating, and I said this in our kind of closing comments today or in the podcast, is I said, I'm now not convinced people want to know the truth.
Oh,
I
wow.
think that Marilyn Monroe has become a money machine.
Oh my God, that's so true, isn't
And
it?
it's unfortunate because her legacy, particularly this year, I've never felt so, the best way I could describe it is kind of yucky in my feeling, because I do, without knowing her, obviously, but how she's been portrayed, particularly in that feature film, I was like, this isn't a character. This is a person. And it's a female. And I'm wondering, and this is just a wondering, I don't know this for sure. I've never seen a male categorized as horrifically as she has,
Oh, horrible.
as a real life person, not a
I,
character.
I used to have, there was an obsession with her when I was coming up before the 80s, I think. And I had the Norman Mailer books on Marilyn, and he was it was like the male gaze on Marilyn from a man's overly sexualized, trying to be poetic point of view. I don't know. I have nothing bad to say about Norman Mailer, but he was obsessed with her.
Well, and not only that, but the podcast really talks about the four people that started the rumor machine.
Really?
Unfortunately, Norman Mailer, he actually came out and said a lot of what he wrote about Marilyn wasn't true. So just FYI. So yes, so you have some really big characters in there. And unfortunately, one of them even claimed that he was married to her, which, when he claimed, and he actually had an ABC special. So I mean, this is how far he got. And then the internet hit, and then some of the things that kind of came out, he was never married to her. He would have known today, he would have been known as a stalker.
Exactly.
But he was one of the biggest contributors to the rumor mill.
Oh my God, you're kidding.
Yeah.
How bizarre.
I know. It's really a fascinating story. I think the truth is actually more fascinating than the rumors that are out there. And that's been a really big challenge, because everybody, even this in selling television shows. Well, where's the smoking gun? Did Bobby Kennedy kill her? And I want to share this with your audience because I think it's really important. There are 9 photos that prove where Bobby Kennedy was that day. The day that,
and they won't believe it. They won't believe it, right?
Not only will they not believe it, but that's proof. He's with his kids. He's on a horse.
Okay, so you're extrapolating this into today's world, where you cannot get the facts no matter what. And I keep trying to prove to people that are telling complete lies, conspiracies about a lot of things. And I keep saying, but I go by the Society of Ethical Journalism, which real investigative journalists are vetted by at least 8 sources, or they vet their sources. And
not anymore.
Well, they're supposed to. AP and Reuters are supposed to be vetting. Kids go to college to become journalists, and they take a vow of ethics. And so I keep trying to show them this angle, and they don't believe it. There's nothing you can do.
Well, and that's the thing. And so I was very passionate about the truth coming out, because I think what happened is when I got connected to the story, then I was like, wow, what I thought was true wasn't. So I'll give you just another little tidbit, because I think this is really interesting. So I always thought, I heard these stories about the enema and that she was injected, and the housekeeper was doing washing the sheets in the middle of the night. Well, we come to find out Marilyn Monroe didn't even have a washer and dryer in her house. And I mean, those are the kind of things that are told over and over and over again. Marilyn Monroe was drinking the day she died. No, she wasn't. Those are the kind of things that, especially in today's world, even more so than back in 1962, somebody sees it. They don't check their facts. It goes on the internet. It goes into your feed. And then somebody else picks it up without checking the sources. And then before you know it, it becomes a truth.
Game of telephone.
Yeah. So, your podcast is about mental health. And I think one of the biggest things that's why I'm a little bit more, because I've grown to love her, is that, people with mental health, stop with the tragic figure and she's this and she was difficult and all this stuff. She achieved more in 36 years than most of us will do in 96 years. And the fact that she had an acute mental illness and still survived and thrived and lived to 36 is pretty much miraculous.
Wait,
and
mental illness addiction? Was it alcohol and drug addiction?
Not alcohol, but prescription drugs. And she had an acute mental illness. She was diagnosed with bipolar, with a depressive disorder, but she also, in today's standards, so in our podcast, which is Behind the Icon, it was Marilyn Behind the Icon. It's based on Gary Vitacco-Robles' best-selling book, and believe me, it's a 3-volume set. And what it really profiles is that probably today, because back in 1962 there was no diagnosis for borderline personality, so she would have been diagnosed with a depressive disorder. She had tried to commit suicide, at least that we know of, 4 or 5 times prior to her death. And so when you start to understand mental illness, you start to understand her story more. But you notice, like even in the Netflix documentary, at the very end, Anthony Summers comes out and says, I think that she either overdosed or committed suicide. But almost 3/4 of that documentary was dedicated to the Kennedys.
How weird. Really? I didn't see it yet. Wait,
Yeah.
Go back for a second. I got chills when you said bipolar or borderline. Which one?
Both.
Okay, just yesterday.
So she was actually diagnosed with bipolar. She wasn't diagnosed with borderline back then because it wasn't a diagnosis.
Okay,
but Gary Vitacco-Robles, the author, is also a mental health professional.
Okay, so I got to tell you the God shot right here. Godshots is the name of this podcast. The God shot is, I wrote this in my book yesterday. My mother was diagnosed bipolar, but we didn't know it was borderline. I just tried to look that up yesterday, and you just said it. You just answered my question. I'm getting chills.
Yeah.
Because my mother was borderline. She was incredibly, God bless her, rest her soul, abusive to the point where with me, I mean, it's horror stories that and I've written them in my book in a loving way because we had a complete forgiveness before she got her dementia. And then she spent the rest of her life just begging forgiveness of me. I found hidden letters, but we didn't know what it was. We thought it was bipolar. There was no name for it. She wouldn't seek help. We couldn't get her to go anywhere.
Yeah.
And you're saying they didn't have a diagnosis for borderline, which is now what we know she was.
Yeah. And that's, and so part of my mission is when I talk to people about mental health is the correlation. There's a big correlation between mental health and addiction. And the challenge with it is that when you have, not all the time, but when you have a mental health issue, especially something like bipolar, what happens is that a lot of times bipolar people are extremely bright.
Yes.
And they can't shut it off. So what they do is they start to go to self-medicate. My dear friend since first grade died this year of alcoholism, mainly alcoholism. And when I look at her brightness, a lot of it was, I've just got to calm my thoughts. I've got to calm the demons in my head. And so, very quick, very smart, but really suffered from bipolar as well as alcoholism. It doesn't have to go hand in hand, and it's not always the case, but we've got to find a way, Lydia, to stop the stigma. Because, if you just label somebody something.
Right. That's right.
And what's happening a lot of the time is I can go into a corporate environment and I can say, you know what, I've got diabetes. I can say, you know what, I'm going to go out because I have stress. If I go into a corporate environment and I'm interviewing and I say, oh, by the way, I suffer from bipolar disorder.
They're not going to hire you, are they?
It becomes, that's where the stigma is.
Oh my God.
And so what happens a lot of times is people don't get the right help because they want to fit in. Everybody wants to fit in. Everybody wants to belong.
Yeah.
And so it becomes really tough, So
You're a wealth of, I'd like to actually do a part 1 and a part 2 with you, because this is a wealth of information that I'm like greedily absorbing. It's so important. And you're just getting started on the stuff that now I realize I have so many questions to ask you. But we don't want to go on past, too long.
Yeah.
To keep it to a concise amount of time. But will you come back on so we can talk about?
Oh, yes, we'll have more to talk about. One thing I do want to say to your audience, because I think it's a really important one. Marilyn Monroe, before she would go out on stage or start with something that was kind of scary for her, she would tell people, hold a good thought. And so we end our podcast this way, and I'm going to say this for your audience as well, is I think not only do we hold a good thought for Marilyn, but let's hold a good thought for our world, because I think we really do need it right now more than ever.
More than ever. And I believe prayer is the invisible transfer of love to another. Just about our thoughts. It's good thinking, good thoughts.
Great thinking.
So hold a good thought for our world. And thank you, Nina, for a fantastic show. I can't wait to have you back. You're a really amazing woman. You have so much to share. You have an amazing business. So I can't wait to talk to you again.
Thank you so much for having me. And I love your Godshots. I love that. It's just so great. I love Godshots.
A Godshot is an uncanny glimpse of synchronicity. When you have a coincidence that's too bizarre to be random. Something more.
I felt that when I first met you. Remember, we had that first kind of feeling of like, you feel so familiar to me, right? That was really cool. So
cool. Okay, we'll have you back. Blessings to everyone. Lots of love and more Godshots next week. Thanks.